Magandang araw po mga kapilosopohan. Ito na naman si Pilosopong Mando, ang inyong kagapay sa pag-aaral ng filosofiya. At sa araw po na ito ay pag-uusapan natin ang mga katangian ng filosofiya. At tatalakayin ko po ang mga katangian ng filosofiya sa wikang Banyaga, sa wikang English. Bilang isang parte po ng leksyon sa filosofiya, atin pong pag-uusapan ang apat na talagang characteristics ng filosofiya, o mga katangian ng filosofiya. Kaya mga kaibigan, bago po tayo magpatuloy, ay hayaan nyo munang humingi ako ng tulong sa inyo na kung maaari mag-subscribe kayo at pindutin ang notification bell para lagi kang updated sa aking YouTube channel at sa mga susunod pa nating mga video na i-upload dito sa ating YouTube channel. Ganun din po naman, mag-comment po kayo para sa mas maganda pang pagpepresenta ng mga leksyon sa filosofiya. At huwag niyo pong kalimutan, kung di pa kayo subscribers, ay mag-subscribe na rin po kayo. Okay po? So pag-usapan na po natin itong apat na katangian ng filosofiya na ating pag-uusapan sa leksyon sa filosofiya ngayong hapon, ngayong araw na ito. Ang una po, philosophy is considered as it thrives on questions. Ito po ay nananahan sa mga pagtatanong. Ang filosofiya ay nananahan o nagmumula sa mga pagtatanong. Ang filosofiya po ay nagagawa natin sa pamamagitan din ng pagtatanong. So, I would like to continue by trying to explain to you that philosophy thrives on questions, okay, through the English language. I'm not used to it, but I'll try my best to really explain in English these characteristics of philosophy. So one of the unique characteristics of philosophy is that it is done just by asking questions, arguing, trying out ideas, and thinking of possible arguments against them, and wondering how our concepts really work. It has no particular methods like the sciences and distortive approach. This position becomes more sensible when it is understood that the main concern of philosophy is to question and understand very common ideas that all of us use every day without thinking about them. A historian may ask what happened at some time in the past, but a philosopher will ask, what is time? A mathematician may investigate the relations among numbers, but a philosopher will ask, what is a number? A physicist will ask what atoms are made of or what explains gravity, but a philosopher will ask how we can know there is anything outside of our own minds. A psychologist may investigate how children learn, a language, but a philosopher will ask what makes a word mean anything. Anyone can ask whether it is wrong. Anyone can ask whether it is wrong to sneak into a movie without paying. But a philosopher will ask, what makes an action right or wrong? On the basis of this centrality of the question to philosophy, some opinions are that its questions are more essential than its answers, and every answer becomes new question. Okay? That is the very reason why, my dear friends, philosophy is considered as something that thrives in questions. Nag-uumpisa po tayo sa tanong, sa pamimilosopiya. Nagtatanong tayo at tayo'y nagtataka, at sa ating pagtataka, tayo'y nagtatanong. Ang pangalawa pong katangian ng filosofiya ay philosophy is attuned to extra-observational answers. Ito ay kumbagay kumikiling, sabihin natin kumikiling, sa mga bagay-bagay na lampas sa ating mga naoobserbahan, sa ating mga nakikita. Although philosophy thrives on questions, it is also obvious that other disciplines ask questions as well. It is the nature of the question asked by philosophy that stands it out from other questions and kinds of disciplines. The questions raised by philosophy cannot just be answered by evidences from observation. It most of the times requires extra justification beyond mere observation. Barcalow, an author, is of the opinion that many people say that the difference between philosophical and non-philosophical questions is that we can answer non-philosophical questions fairly, decisively by examining the evidence of the senses. For example, sensory evidence will tell us with a high degree of certainty how long lions generally live. How long lions generally live. Even in cases where there is controversy, for example, over whether there is intelligent life beyond our solar system or why Julius Caesar was assassinated, in principle, the question could be answered with a high degree of certainty if we accumulated enough observational or empirical evidence. On the other hand, with philosophical questions, although observational evidence is by no means irrelevant, observation can never provide enough evidence to show with certainty which answer is correct. This goes to show the very nature of philosophical questions, and this difference is based on the fact that philosophy requires more than mere observation to answer its questions. Okay, so philosophy is attuned to extra-observational answers. More than the empirical answers, in philosophy, we also rely on the extra-observational answers. Answers that do not merely rely on observation or on empirical data. Because questions in philosophy at times require these extra-observational answers. So that's the second characteristic of philosophy. The third characteristic of philosophy is that philosophy is ultimately the search for wisdom. Philosophy and wisdom are not synonyms, but wisdom is encompassed within philosophy. Sophia is wisdom, and philosophy is the love of wisdom. The intellectual growth of people accumulates experiences. The whole of these experiences is a form of personal knowledge and development. This is the definition of wisdom. A well-known anecdote to explain the difference between wisdom and philosophy came when Lion King of the Philakos asked Pythagoras his profession, and he responded that he was not wise or he was not sophist, but simply a philosopher, a lover of wisdom, or aspiring to it. Someone who is aspiring to wisdom. He who is wise does not philosophize, for he is supposed to have discovered the mysteries of the world and knows them. However, a philosopher recognizes his own ignorance, and his constant aspiration is to attain wisdom. Socrates perfectly reflected the pursuit of his wisdom with the phrase known by everyone, "I hope so." Socrates said, "I only know that I do not know anything." The search purely for wisdom is one of the hallmarks of philosophy. Okay, that is the third characteristic of wisdom, that it is ultimately the search for wisdom, of philosophy, I should say. Philosophy is ultimately the search for wisdom. And the fourth characteristic of philosophy is it is an intellectual and intermediate speculation. From the beginning, philosophy characterizes as an intellectual and intermediate enterprise in understanding the social reality. It is intellectual to the extent that the intellect is the basic instrument for its operations. It relies on logical reasoning for accomplishing its task. It is intermediate, as Bertrand Russell views it, as something in between theology and science. Like theology, it consists of speculations on matters as to which defined knowledge has so far been ascertainable. Like science, it appeals to human reason rather than to authority, whether that of tradition or that of revelation. As Russell argues, all definite knowledge belongs to science, and all dogma as to what surpasses definite knowledge belong to theology. All the questions of the most interest the speculative minds, which are such that science cannot answer, and the confident answers of theologians, which no longer seem so convincing as they did in earlier times, belong to the realm of philosophy. Once firm and certain answers are established for these questions of interest to man, they move from philosophy into the realm of science. If the dogmas of religion begin to lose their appeal and come under doubt, they enter into the realm of philosophy. This intermediate role of philosophy is also part of what stands it out. Okay, so that's the fourth characteristic. Philosophy is an intellectual and intermediate speculation. So, my dear friends, in these discussions of the characteristics of philosophy, the focus has been on identifying some of the key characteristics of philosophy, and four of them have been identified. These are the following: philosophy thrives on questions, philosophy is attuned to extra-observational answers, philosophy is ultimately the search for wisdom, and philosophy is an intellectual and intermediate enterprise. All of the features identified above also constitute the essence of philosophy. Thus, defining philosophy from the etymological sense, common sense, or professional sense, as well as identifying the modes of philosophy, does not exhaust the whole of essence of what philosophy is. The characteristics of philosophy, as itemized in this discussion, contributes to a robust understanding of what is philosophy. Okay? So far, my dear friends, I was able to give you the four characteristics of philosophy. And I hope may natutunan po tayo sa ating pagpapatuloy na pamimilosopiya. Kung inyo pong nagustuhan, meron kayong natutunan sa ating pagbabahagi, ay huwag niyong kalilimutan mag-subscribe sa Pilosopong Mando TV. Okay po, maraming salamat sa inyo. God bless us all. Ito po ang inyong kapilosopuhan, Pilosopong Mando at sa tunay na buhay, Amando Lulukisen. Thank you and God bless to all of you.